And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 326 of This Old Marketing for Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. And with me, as always, my friend, my colleague, and a guy who hasn't yet made his horror movie remake of Winnie the Pooh, Mr. Joe Polizzi.
All right. You're gonna
just going to let that one hang there for a while.
I do not get at all where you're going with this one. So what
So you have not seen
about?
This is okay, so here's the thing. Winnie the Pooh has now come into the public domain as a content property.
Okay.
Now, you can't go duplicate the Winnie the Pooh that Disney made, of course, because the likeness that they have created is under their own intellectual property. But Winnie the Pooh, the character, and Winnie the Pooh, the story, is now in the public domain. So you can kind of do with it what you want. And so apparently this, I have not seen the movie yet, but there is a movie that is out now called Winnie the Pooh and the Blood Rain or the Blood Dance or something like that. It is a horror movie that has been made about Winnie the Pooh and Piglet being, serial killers or something.
Well,
and it's going around. It's the most ridiculous but most internet but most wonderful thing.
Yeah, my first reaction is this sounds like the one horrible aspect of public domain, but part of me really wants to see it. Like, I really want to see what they do. How they treat this. Horrible.
And more of this is going to start coming into public domain. More and more of these sort of these old classics are coming into, it's getting to the point now where old films are coming into public domain, old, stories, old characters. And, you're going to start seeing more and more of this for sure.
It's funny. I've read a couple books by Madeline Miller recently, and it's all around the Iliad and Greek mythology and whatever, and all that stuff is obviously, you can use whatever you want out of that. And it's so refreshing and original. And it's odd that more people don't do that. There's
that don't take advantage.
That don't take advantage.
Yeah.
That don't take advantage of going back. And if you see all the popular works that were done that are available for you to do whatever, instead of just saying, "Oh man, I'm sitting here and I can't think of something for my novel," or whatever. Go back.
It's Well, you saw this. There was a flurry of sort of rom-coms made out of Shakespeare scripts. Not too long ago, like I think it's 10 Things I Hate About You is basically Taming of the Shrew, but set in, 1990s or early 2000s, high school. So you've seen some of that come out, but you're right. Not a lot of people have taken advantage of this.
Maybe we should do something. Okay, forget that.
Yeah.
Totally forget that, because we have just
Snow White.
Basic.
I think we should do Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
It's like just basic blocking and tackling that we don't do. Like, I finally, there's a couple of our listeners that finally realized that our YouTube distribution is back up, because I was having problems with it, all kinds of issues. And did you know that the one episode where I called the Webby Award-winning episode, which, by the way, was maybe one of our greatest episodes we've ever had, it got blocked by YouTube.
Yeah.
Because it did.
No, it didn't. Because we mentioned the
because I
Webbies?
had it in the title. They made it private and said, "Sorry, you can't distribute this." And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? But the last episode, which I called Darkwing 84 and Other Marketing Conspiracies, went through just fine. No problems there.
Of course.
I just didn't realize I had to watch my titling for YouTube. So there's that. Anyways.
Well, that's because Google's algorithmic logic is as smart as a bucket of pucks. It does not do well when it's stuff.
Well, that's the challenge with, the AI they have is really good, but it can't be perfect, and you cannot have human beings do this. There's just too much content. There's a billion hours of content every hour.
You can have human beings do this, but it would slow things down considerably.
Yes, you can't. I mean, if they had to have a human look at it, and you wanted to upload a podcast, it'd be weeks, months. Can't happen.
That's right. Of course. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, it's sort of the trade-off, right? You get the high quality curation and all of that, but you lose speed. I mean, it's like when you ask yourself, well, what is the right amount of time? How long should it take? You know what I mean? It's like, some people have said this, and I know we'll talk about Meta here in a second because they're in the news this week. But the question is, should we be able to get the immediate gratification for hitting post on a Facebook, on a piece of Facebook content, or should it go through some level of scrutiny or time to either give you a chance to retract it or give the curation engine a chance to retract it, because so many Facebook posts are awful because they're done in the heat of the moment.
I wonder if there's
it's including, by the way, that I mean, it's just an awful example, but it's a perfect one, which is the people who are live streaming their horrible the Uvalde school shooting is a great example of this. It's like, should we expect that live streaming is actually live, or should there be some level of delay?
I mean, it works fairly well. I mean, how much delay are we talking about? But what is it? A 7-second delay for television?
Yeah, but that's a human intervention, right? There is a human intervention there that's watching that with a big red, opt-out
There's
button.
nobody. Yeah, I don't know. I think that our expectations are immediate, and
exactly.
It would be nice. I think it would be okay until you get some level of credibility and you're a live streamer and you get the check mark or whatever that means, that you do this consistently. Which, if you get that, whatever that is, you can upload immediately. Like if you got the blue check on Twitter or whatever the case is, you can do things immediately. But if you don't, you have to work up to that credibility, and there's like an hour period that somebody has to wait. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's an interesting way to model it for sure.
Or the other way to do it is if you want to have the pay gate.
Yeah, that's another one, right? That would make you identify yourself and make you, because you're paying for this to get in, very much like when you sign up for a trading account and those sorts of things where you have to sort of, pay to get in and then prove that you're a human and all of that, like, what we've talked about as a model for Twitter. Then now you get that, right? You pay, for your money. One of the things you get is immediate
Can you
posting.
imagine? First of all, there would be an outcry. I know we're probably going to talk about Twitter at some point.
It would be crazy.
But let's just take Twitter. Let's say you're going to use that rule, and if you pay $3 a month, you get immediate posting on everything and commenting. And if you don't, it's not. You have to wait an hour. I mean, there'd be millions and millions of dollars a month going to Twitter's bottom line just from that move. Now, so a lot of people would not like it, but it would clear out, some of the wrongdoing, I think.
It would clear out a lot of things. It would clear out a lot of bots. It would clear out a lot. There would be so much that it would clear out. And you're right. People would be furious about it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, they should be talking to us, and they're not. And we're going to cover a Twitter story here. There's so many things that we can fix. That you and I could fix at Twitter, but they're not listening. So I don't know.
Well, let's talk about all the things that we should fix.
Yeah, but are you gonna talk about what? I mean, this is like breaking news of what's going on at Meta here.
This
today.
is breaking news, actually. Yeah, over the last day or so. Yeah, so we'll open with this just to talk briefly about it because it feels like we should talk a little bit about it. Which is, of course, Sheryl Sandberg has said, she's tapped out basically of Facebook, the parent company Meta, as chief operating officer, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little about the inside baseball of the depressing place that is now Twitter. I think yours truly made a pretty good call on that a few weeks back. We'll talk a little bit about media and how it's pivoting back to free content with ad revenue and subscription revenue sort of seeing interesting disruptions. And then we'll talk very quickly around NP Digital and their acquisition of Answer the Public, the SEO wonderful little tool that sits out on the web, and why that's such an interesting development in the world of content marketing. And Jonas Brothers, because Jonas Brothers, the huge investment technology, I know I have no idea what I'm talking about there. Jonas Brothers are backing this new subscription media business that's going to be launching. And then we'll talk about the first case of insider trading for NFTs and how the Justice Department is starting to actually have some backbone and crack down on some of this stuff. And we'll talk about some of the implications there. I will have some commentary around the Supreme Court and its recent decision to block social media Texas law, which said that basically harmful content couldn't or should be removed, and the Supreme Court's action there and what that might mean. And you are going to talk a little bit and rave a little bit about, what is it again you're going to do?
I'm going to talk about the Michelob Ultra Guy and a book recommendation.
Right. With the guy in front of Tiger he was actually watching the action happen instead of photographing.
I love that whole story. So we'll talk about that, and then I've got a great book recommendation that I've been just raving about all over the place. So we'll talk about that too.
Fantastic. And we got a lot to get through, so we'll get through it as quickly as we possibly can because there's a lot of news this week, it seems. A lot of things for us to fix.
Yes, exactly. Only so much time. Let's do this. Let's get to fixing.
And the first one is that Facebook is losing a few executives, it seems like. Just breaking news literally yesterday and today. Sheryl Sandberg, it's an end of an era, says most of the headlines. 14 years at Facebook as the chief operating officer, and had made a special sort of deal with Mr. Zuckerberg on what her role would be when the company was very young and growing and quite frankly breaking a lot of rules, and where she leaves it today. What do you think about this? I mean, Sheryl, and then there's other breaking news that we can also cover about another executive that's leaving. But what do you think about Sheryl Sandberg leaving Facebook? Is this, does this change the face of Facebook, or is this just, her leaning in, as it were?
Yeah, she's leaning out. It seems. And then hat tip to Joe Bagonis, who sent us another. This just happened like 5 minutes ago. Meta says vice president for.
Are you sure that's not Dan?
Well, we call him Dan. His name's Joe. But we like to call him Dan. So he sent us a tweet. He said, "Danger, Dan is my middle name." So that's very nice of you, Joe. So Joe sent me a tweet that says, Meta says Vice President for AI Jerome Presenti will depart from Meta as well in mid-June. So they're obviously, Robert, and we've covered this for weeks on the show, they're going through some strife, and I think a lot of that is because of TikTok. And they don't know what to do. It's not just what's been happening in the leveling off of Facebook, but I think it has a lot to do with Instagram here. And I guess my take, and I would love to hear what you think, it almost seems like they're so fixated on TikTok and replicating with Instagram what TikTok's doing that they're ruining their entire business, which is not bad. Like, I don't think there was anything broken necessarily with Instagram, but in Instagram's new search to become TikTok or better than TikTok, they're I don't know if you've been on Instagram lately, but it just feels different. I'm seeing more sponsor stuff. There's more push to reels, which they want to be. That's their broken version of not broken, but not as good a version as TikTok. But I know a lot of creators that were just fine and happy, and a lot of users that were just fine with Instagram being the picture place. But no, now everything's got to go to video. Why? Why do they have to do that? Why are they breaking what is not broken to catch TikTok? And I think that has a lot to do with it. So it seems maybe Sheryl and maybe whoever else who doesn't think like Zuck is thinking, they're on the outs. I don't know. What do you think?
I have to think that. I have to think this is more about the doubling down in metaverse stuff than it is around the sort of slow disintegration of some of their main product lines. And quite honestly, I think the Sheryl Sandberg thing is I think she's tired. You know what I mean? I think I'd have to think that after 14 years of this, she's got other things that she wants to do. And, in her note, which was, very flowery and very, it certainly glossed over many of the, the challenges that she leaves and certainly that has had at Facebook, by talking about, but, you wouldn't expect that in sort of an exit note anyway. But the way it sounds is that she's just ready to move on and do something different with her life. I'll take her at her word on that and just say, yeah, after 14 years, I'm probably ready to do something different too, and she, apparently wants to get into philanthropy and, there's some rumor that she may run for office of some kind or something like that. But that remains to be seen. I think on the other hand, you're exactly on point with some of the other executive shakeups and some of the other things that we've heard around Facebook, which is the attention being placed on the metaverse and Oculus and all the things that Zuckerberg is clearly passionate about moving the company in is to the detriment of the other product lines, which are, to your point, not broken, but becoming more broken as they try and simply copy those competitors that are biting around the ankles. And of course, TikTok is a giant jaws, not biting around the ankles. It's coming to bite the head off. But, I think that threat is certainly there. But that threat with TikTok is for
every company in media. It's just curious.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's probably been too long, and Sheryl Sandberg should have left a while ago. It's just curious with the multiple executives in a couple days. I'm sure in your career, I've been through a couple of these meetings where it's the get in line meeting, where you have the CEO or the board stand in front of you and saying, here's our new direction. Here's what we're doing. And here's the vision. And if you don't believe in this vision, then you're going to talk with me, me meaning the CEO, and we'll figure out a nice departure for you. I mean, I've been in 2 of those meetings, and they are very powerful because you get people to, hey, I'm staying here no matter what. You get other people saying, screw this, I'm out. And you could be seeing, because you're right. And if Mark Zuckerberg gets up there and he is a true believer in whatever his idea of the metaverse is and its integration with VR and Oculus, there's a lot of people that don't believe that that's the future of the metaverse, his idea of it. And it would take a lot of convincing for very intelligent people to think that that's going to be it. I could see them saying, forget this, I'm gone. Let's go.
And I also think, and we talked about this, a couple of months ago when really the air got sucked out of, Facebook's stock price. And we talked about at that point, all of these employees, certainly the more senior, but yet not maybe C-level employees looking at their options plan and going, hey, all of a sudden those golden handcuffs aren't so golden any longer. And looking at my options, it's like, do I really want to, it's one of the things when I sold my house back in 2006, which on paper makes me a genius. But it was the reason I sold my house and moved wasn't because we saw the peak of the real estate market, which is 2006, 2007, when it was all frothy and, people were knocking on other people's houses and saying, hey, can I buy your house, for 5x the asking price? But the reason I sold my house was because we were coming up on a big balloon payment. The electrical needed to be redone. The plumbing needed to be redone. The roof really should have been redone. So I was looking at all these expenses and saying, do I really feel like being here another 10 years? And we didn't. And so we said, now is the time to sell because we can do it. We don't need to do all these things in order to sell the house and make money on it. We can get out while we can and go move somewhere else for 10 years. And that was a great move for us. And, that same calculus happens in the corporate world as well, where, they know the stock's going to go back up eventually, but it's like, do I really want to spend another 8 or 10 years of my life so that I vest this thing, in the way that I had originally intended, or do I just take my losses and move on to something different?
Yeah, it's a great point. Just so everyone knows that Meta is down. They're up actually 5% today, but they're down 42%, 43% from their high. and they're down right around to their 2018 levels, believe it or not. So that's
it's crazy.
And it doesn't look like it's coming back anytime soon. We could be wrong about that, but Facebook is not. It's not going to have a bounce back like an Apple is. That there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the business model. There's enough things going wrong with the growth at Meta where there's some concern that they're not going to get the premium valuations anymore. So to your point, might be a really good idea for these executives to get out while they can and reinvest that knowledge.
Just go do something else,
somewhere else.
Well, and you've made the point a couple of times really well where you talk about, this is the perfect time to double down and start something new. And that has to be a motivating fact for a lot of these executives too. It's like, they see that same economic conditions and they're like, hey, this is my time. This is my time when I can actually go out and try something new and get in at the bottom and really, and ride something up to the top and really do something interesting. And so it's an opportune time to jump from one ship to another ship because there's a lot of churn going on right now. So there's a lot of opportunity.
So we'll see. I mean, it's interesting. And then isn't there something going on Twitter as well? Like, do we have to cover that? And now, I know you need it. Time for a sponsorship break. Be back in a bit. So, the sponsor of this episode of This Old Marketing is Zapier. Now, I've heard about Zapier because they sponsor quite a few of the podcasts that I listen to. So go podcast advertising. Anyway, as part of the sponsorship, they made a little ask of us to actually try using Zapier before we promote the heck out of it. Small enough ask, I thought. So basically, Zapier is supposed to help you be more productive by tying your apps together and creating simple tasks, which I learned are called zaps. So I signed up. Now, for my Zap, I wanted to keep track of all my calendar appointments into a spreadsheet and then put the name of the person I'm meeting with, their email address, and the date together automatically. Now, I've always wanted to do this as part of lead scoring. Basically, a meeting with me means something important happened, and I wanted to keep track of this. It took me 5 minutes to set this up. Now it automatically populates a spreadsheet for me, and believe me, if I can do this in 5 minutes, you can do it in 3. It's super easy to understand. So now, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm a believer. And I have a bunch of things I want to do with Twitter and Discord to help me be more productive. Seriously, check it out. Go to Zapier.com/TOM to try it today for free. That's Zapier.com/TOM. And please use the code so they continue to sponsor This Old Marketing podcast. Thank you. And now back to the future award-winning marketing and media podcast, This Old Marketing. Thanks for listening.
Well, yeah, the same thing, right? The same thing is going on at Twitter, and the news story that we'll cover here is from Bloomberg. The article opens up by saying it's a bad time. Inside Twitter, shuffled jobs, Elon Musk tweets, everything is dampening the morale. The Bloomberg article starts off by saying Twitter employees are enduring the whiplash of a public commentary from the social network's future owner, a changeover in leadership, a hiring freeze, and on top of all that, some are going to start to be assigned new jobs as the company shifts away from its riskier projects. Executives told workers of plans to pull back resources for some long-term ambitions, including audio spaces, newsletters, and communities, in favor of focusing on more immediate needs like user growth, personalization efforts, according to people familiar with the matter. Basically, the article goes on to talk about how Jay Sullivan, who had taken over product leadership, is leaving, he's leading the restructuring, basically. It goes on to talk about how, the teams on side Twitter are trying to work on an edit button, which is like, that has to be the most depressing new feature to be working on.
What's your job?
It's like,
you can edit
be working
tweets.
on some really cool thing. You're like, no, we're working on an edit button. We're looking on where you can edit your tweets. Yay. That's something that goes on the LinkedIn profile. So all of this is being driven, of course, by Elon Musk and all of his Twitter shenanigans and everything going on with them in the news. And basically, One internal discussion shortly before Twitter's board accepted the deal, an employee was asked if anyone was excited about the idea of having Elon on board. The question prompted 446 replies from dozens of employees over 3 days, many of them negative, according to posts reviewed by Bloomberg. Some replied that Musk didn't seem to grasp the challenges Twitter faces around speech or building a social network more generally. I think this is, this is not a good time for Twitter. And once again, as I've said many times before, it's the kind of thing that makes me sad because those people are putting in the hours. They're putting in the 10,000 hours to really do something what they hope is interesting. And just some knucklehead is coming in and just knocking everything around and busting up the joint. And it's really quite annoying because if this is true about Twitter, like the audio spaces, that was one of the more interesting things around Twitter was the spaces and audio stuff. And if they're going to kill that or just sort of let it languish out there, that's it's just sad because that was really interesting.
I don't know if I have any constructive thing to add to this conversation other than the fact that Elon Musk, if he wanted to see change happen at Twitter, he's done a remarkable job of seeing change happen. And there's change no matter what happens, if the deal goes through or not. I could absolutely see in 6 to 9 months nothing happening. Whatever the case is, obviously the sale price that he put out there, $54.20, is not going to happen because right now the stock's at $40. People don't believe it's going to happen. So Elon's going to come back with, he's either going to come back with, the smaller number, which they can accept or not. I could see him coming back with something in the 30s that they should absolutely say no to. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. But you've got executives that are going to be leaving here. You've got talent that is not in it anymore. They're not working on their projects. They're not innovating anymore. And it's going to be a shell of the company it was. And it's just sad that one person is able to do that.
My prediction now is that there is somebody going to wait in the wings. And what's going to happen is that Musk has already lost his taste for it, I'm sure. And is just, it's all theater from now till I think it's October that they have to sort of finalize things. But from now till the fall, let's say, just this summer is going to be lots of positioning around, it's not what it seems to be, and there's many bots, and his just excuse and bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, and they're going to at some point say we couldn't come to terms. There's a problem. Musk is going to pay some penalty because he's supposed to pay some penalty. There will be lawsuits plenty. And somebody comes in the late fall, my prediction would be, and actually buys Twitter for a song. Because at $40 a share, now it all of a sudden it is a bargain.
Yeah, it's like instead of selling it for $44 billion, it's going to be around $30 billion, maybe high 20s. Yeah, high 20s, something like that. Maybe less. There's actually, I don't know if you listened to it. There's a really good short interview that Prof G did. I can't remember the expert. I'm sorry, I apologize, but it talks about the cascading effects and things that will happen. And so if you want to go through the pricing and yes or no, but the thing I thought was really interesting that I wasn't aware of, when Elon came forward with, here's how I'm going to fund the purchase, Tesla stock on paper and all this, he said there was like a $14 billion funding gap that he never said where it was going to come from. And because the guy was saying, this accounting expert was saying, because of the price depreciation that happened in Tesla and because of the $14 billion and I don't know where it's coming from money, Elon Musk could absolutely come back to Twitter and come back to the legal teams and say, sorry, because of these extenuating factors that I didn't think were going to happen, I'm getting out of this deal. And you can say you want your $1 billion in breakup fee, but I'm not doing that either. And that'll be it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And he will leave in his wake a much maligned and very weakened Twitter, which was already weak. So it's just sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
It's horrible because it's still one of my favorite platforms. But you
it is mine too. Yeah.
Bye Twitter. Bye.
Yeah.
We'll see ya.
Bye Twitter.
We'll see it to be Twitter, Winnie the Pooh, and Twitter. Strike back.
That's what we should do. We should do a Winnie the Pooh and Twitter mashup.
Oh my God, that would bring them back.
See, we've already fixed
and we
it.
could tweet that
it.
and with a little video, and it's for all you much maligned Twitter employees. This is for you.
That's right.
We love you. We're standing next to you in solidarity.
That's exactly it.
Boo Eli.
I like it. All right, let's move along to our next story here, which is around media companies, as we've been talking about them on this show. And the headline here from Simon Owen's Media Newsletter, which I didn't know much about until you sent this to me. Media companies are pivoting back to free content. Publishers have loosened their paywalls after witnessing both a slowdown in subscription growth and a rising demand for ads. Media companies are pivoting back, says Simon. As someone who writes a lot about digital subscriptions, I sometimes go back and read the early media coverage of the New York Times digital paywall. Launched in March 2011, it served as the catalyst that kicked off a veritable subscription boom among news publishers. Before then, people seriously wondered whether consumers would pay for digital news, but it didn't take long for the entire publishing industry to change its tune once the Gray Lady announced several subsequent quarters of impressive subscription growth. Within a few years, nearly every newspaper, both national and local, was operating its own metered paywall. When I reread the Times 2011 paywall announcement, the thing that jumped out was the number of free articles readers could access before triggering the paywall. 20. That number just seems so insane to me now, given that no current day paywall is that generous. This article goes on to talk a little bit about how paywalls have become more restrictive over the last few years, but that there are changes coming along. In fact, he says, Quartz announced several weeks ago it was doing away with its website paywall entirely. The Independent, a paper located in the UK, just launched a new update to its app that makes it available to non-paying users. LA Times published a big piece recently about the rise of free advertising-supported streaming apps like Tubi, Pluto TV, and Freevee. Well, let's talk about Freevee, but all right. And then when NBC News built its own streaming service, it eschewed. He uses the word eschewed. I'm going to issue you a subscription model, and it's reportedly profitable from its ad sales alone. Basically, he goes on to talk about how the publishers are really realizing that they were too quick maybe to write off advertising as a source of growth. That's certainly something that Netflix has come to the conclusion to. Anyway, he goes on some more about his analysis of this thing. What do you think, Mr. Polizzi? Is this just a dip in the road for subscriptions, or is it sort of a rejection of that model at the larger level?
First of all, it's not a rejection of that model. There's nothing wrong with a paywall model. It's just we overcorrected. We went from all advertising to everyone said, oh, the savior for our content creation platform is going to be a paywall strategy or a membership strategy. By the way, I'm surprised you didn't meet Simon Owens was at Creator Economy Expo. I didn't get a chance to introduce you two together. So there you go. Anyways, Simon's interesting because he writes about content creation, but he writes it from a small media company standpoint instead of just, hey, I'm a content creator.
All right. His writing is fantastic. I was very taken with his newsletter. We've covered
quite a bit on the Tilt for a while, but I loved this piece because let's put it simply. So the size of the solar system, let's pretend that's advertising and sponsorship dollars.
I love how you say we're going to talk about this simply,
but this people can understand this.
Your mouth
so everyone picture
system.
the size of our solar system. It's big. It's vast.
Yes.
There's a lot of it. And then I want you to think of Pluto. Pluto is so small, it's not even a planet anymore. I feel bad for Pluto, right? The solar system, that's advertising and sponsorship dollars available. Pluto, that's what's available from everyday consumers to buy your stuff and to pay for it every month. So, at first, it was great because Pluto wasn't being used for anything. So we're like, great, yeah, and Pluto's out there. It's great. We can see it. It's a planet. Everything's wonderful. But then all of a sudden, Pluto's not a planet because it's all used up now. So where are you going to go for your dollars if you're a media company, if you're a content creator? You're going to say, look at all these dollars in the solar system. And that's what we're seeing right now. So there's a shift back. You'll still see there's nothing wrong with paywalls. There's nothing wrong with membership models. But there's only so many dollars. We talked about this with the Netflix thing. You know, you got your Netflix, you got your HBO Max, you got your Roku stuff, you got your Paramount Plus, you got your Apple TV, and you're like, so I'm paying $60, and then I'm going to be paying $100 and $200 more than cable people are done with that. They're not going to pay anymore. You're only going to pay for, I can't remember. It was the Pew Research that said we only pay for like 5 content subs per person, and then we're done. We can't do anymore. So what's a content creator and media company to do? Go out and find sponsors. I know we might be running into a recession here, or everybody's talking about it, but there's still lots of sponsorships available, and especially for small creators. We've never seen as much acceptance by larger brands to go in and work with smaller creators who are sort of leading experts in their niche. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. This is a correction that was needed. So if you're a smaller creator or media company, your lowest hanging fruit is not a paywall. It is absolutely into sponsorship dollars, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's just say for the record that the solar system metaphor that was ridiculous.
That was beautiful. I think everyone, now it's going to be the title of this, because I have titling control.
I see.
And all my stupid titles that I come up with for our podcast episodes. See, I get to do that. So now I'm going to call something that says Robert Rose, Pluto, and the solar system.
There you go. Well, and make it Pluto the Disney character, not Pluto. That way we'll get flagged by YouTube again.
Oh my God! Good thing you told me that, because we'd be. You're so valuable for this podcast. It's those little nuggets that you bring to the table that make all the difference. Exactly.
This is what I offer. And I think you're right. I mean, generally speaking, belabored metaphor aside, I do think you're right. But here's what I would also say, which is, many of those media companies didn't, and by the way, B2B companies do this as well with gating content, right? Which is they equate their stuff with, they look at the New York Times as the model and they go, we could do that too. And we should gate our content in the same way. We should create those subscriptions and paywalls, et cetera, et cetera. But what they fail to, they're not self-aware enough to realize is they're not the New York Times. It's like what's behind the paywall is what's important, right? And so when you're, B2B companies do this all the time. It's like, oh, we'll gate content. But if behind the gated content is stuff like, case studies and your brochures and data sheets and spec sheets, it's like, no, that's just ridiculous and silly. If you're gating truly valuable, wonderful things that people want to subscribe to, and you're creating an audience member by creating valuable things that people want to give you that data in exchange for, that's a different thing. So these news companies all of a sudden realized, we're not the New York Times. We're not making this work in the same level that they are. And so they can go back to advertising and all those kinds of things. But largely speaking, I've always thought advertising is a right approach for many companies. Just we can also evolve what we do with advertising as well. It doesn't all have to be banner ads, right? I mean, there are ways to do advertising in more clever ways to create a great user experience while you also pay the bills.
That's a great point about advertising. And when I was talking about my solar system metaphor, I said sponsorships, which is very, very.
Which one is that? Is that Saturn?
You'll just have to find out.
There with,
you'll have to do some research. But
all right.
I believe that more creators need to think about
belt.
Sponsorship packages, because you do not want to have the apples to apples comparison, get into the CPM wars, anything like that. Put together a sponsorship so it's difficult for the sponsor to say, oh, I can put it against this one, and this one, and say, oh, now I can. No,
right.
What you're delivering should be very unique. And you should bring some things to the intangibles to the table that only you can bring to the table. The other thing I wanted to mention before we go on to the next article is we had an article that we were going to talk about in this show that I could not get access to because you have a membership and I don't.
Yeah,
and I said,
right.
We were crunched for time, and you just said, well, just cut it. And that's happening more and more, and we're covering less of those paywalled. And so that's if you're New York Times, we might still cover it and I'll figure out a way to read it, or you're going to send it to me, whatever. But if it's a smaller media company, we probably will just give up on it or find it somewhere else. So we're not sharing that content.
Right.
We're not linking
and a lot of that has to do with, I don't want to send gated articles to our audience either. Right. Where they have to be a member in order to enjoy it.
Because we care.
That's
because we We C-A-R-E.
Absolutely. We do care. We're fixing things. We're fixing things here on This Old Marketing. All right, let's move along here quickly to this next story, which we'll cover very, very quickly because it's just a fun, quick, notable note when in the world of content marketing and acquisitions. This comes courtesy of martechseries.com, which the headline here is NP Digital's latest acquisition provides enhanced customer insights for analytically driven marketers. That is an SEO
Very
optimized.
nice. Well done,
headline,
SEO
if I've ever
people.
seen one in my life. Yeah, well done. Keywords. You can just look at their little interface where it went, good job, 100% keyword density. You did a nice job. Okay. NP Digital, a leader in performance marketing, has completed negotiations to acquire one of the industry's most popular search marketing tools, Answer the Public. And Answer the Public does exactly that. It's a great tool, by the way, fantastic tool. I've used it many, many times. By listening to autocomplete data at search engines such as Google, of the 3 billion search queries entered by users every day, almost all trigger an autocomplete suggestion by the search engine. This valuable consumer insight can then be used by marketers to create fresh, in-demand content. NP Digital's Uber Suggest has already built upon components of Answer the Public's technology to meet the specific needs of Uber Suggest customers, but businesses of all sizes, from SMBs to global enterprises, can now access this unique data visualization experience. The acquisition of Answer the Public will further expand our technology capabilities of Uber Suggest, providing deeper insights into marketing, said Lisa Oman, COO of Uber Suggest. The article goes on to talk a little bit more about the Uber Suggest as well as NP Digital Technology and Answer the Public. I have got a quick take on this, my friend.
Go ahead. I want to hear your take because
jump out
it's
at
your
you
article, but you know what the take is. So go ahead.
Well, I just want to congratulate, the folks that had put together Answer the Public because, first of all, it's a great tool. But more importantly, this was a content marketing platform. At least what we would classically call a content marketing platform. When it was launched, there was a company called Coverage Book that is a PR-related company, and they launched the whole AnswerThePublic.com little tool, I have to assume, as a content marketing play, right? I don't know if it was to get broader awareness or to actually offer up SEO-related services or all those kinds of things, but they had done a wonderful job of creating this tool out there, a very valuable tool. So what I love about this is, without any intimate knowledge of what's going on inside baseball here about what's getting acquired, how much it's getting acquired for, or anything like that, it seems to me that what Coverage Book has done here is gotten the value that it wanted out of Answer the Public, gotten a great, a great price for it, and ultimately said, we're going to sell it. We're going to sell that piece of it. So again, I don't have any particular intimate knowledge of what's going on here or how it worked, but from my perspective, what it looks like is that they built a great content marketing platform and then sold it as an asset, which is just a wonderful, wonderful story if it's true.
I love the fact that they value their marketing as an asset, and somebody else did as well and did the deal. Yeah, I don't know the details behind why they would want to get rid of it as a marketing asset, but absolutely, we've talked about that. What if Salesforce wanted to sell Dreamforce? Or Flip My Funnel was another one, a great one that was out there. You've got HubSpot's Inbound. You've got a lot of things that people look at them as user conferences or it's such an essential part of the marketing. But you could look at that separately and say, yeah, absolutely, we can sell those things. So,
and the interesting thing to me, which is I've actually asked this of a couple of other people because it's come up, right? So one of the things that I'm working with, I'll just call it, I'm not allowed to say who it is, but let's call it one of the Silicon Valley, huge companies in enterprise software that you would know the name of. And as you might expect, over the course of the last 10 years, they've acquired many, many companies, marketing automation companies. They've acquired, content management companies. They've acquired, all sorts of other enterprise technologies. And of course, along with that came their blogs and their resource centers and their valuable tools. And the interesting thing is that how those things get integrated into the problem that I'm working on with this company is how do you integrate those things into the broader ecosystem, right? So in other words, how does a blog for this company that gets acquired by a ginormous company Y get integrated into their ecosystem of other blogs? Does it continue to operate in a silo, or do you integrate it in as part of an editorial team, or what's the governance, the measurement, all those sorts of things? But the interesting thing to me is that how were those things valuated when they actually did the valuation of the acquisition? Because I think increasingly you have to have that, right? You have to, not only are you buying the technology, the customers, the revenue, all of the things, but you're also buying an asset within the marketing space as well. When I think about, HubSpot and Inbound or Salesforce and Dreamforce and all those things, those are assets for the business, and should be considered assets in the business and should be considered as part of any valuation that the company goes through, whether it's Wall Street or a private venture company. And so I just think it's a really interesting idea here.
That's why I love when you get a chief marketing officer that has publishing and media experience, because they look at the different parts of their marketing with different eyes, and they can see, oh, this can be an asset, or this is an asset. This newsletter list is an asset. This podcast listenership is an asset, instead of just looking at something saying, oh, it's not driving leads in and we're killing it. That's why I love that background. You're seeing more and more of that. You're seeing more CMOs get hired with publishing background, but still a long way to go. Yeah,
exactly. Well, speaking of new launches and value, let's quickly cover this story, which is exclusive. The Jonas Brothers, again, that perennial huge technology VC firm that is the Jonas Brothers, backs the new subscription media biz for celebs. Interesting launch here. The Jonas Brothers are helping to launch this new subscription media company called Scriber that allows celebrities to charge their biggest fans for exclusive content via text messages. This coming to us courtesy of Axios, of course. The goal is to bring the subscription economy to Hollywood without using big tech platforms as the intermediaries. By launching via SMS messaging, Scriber avoids having to pay Google and Apple App Store commission fees for the subscriptions it sells. Fascinating model there. Scriber is meant for professional creators with sizable followings like musicians, actors, athletes, and influencers. The company is launching in partnership with Nick, Joe, and Kevin Jonas, and will add more celebrity creators in June. They're being targeted at the top 1% or 5% of a celebrity's existing follower base, says the journalist and tech entrepreneur Brian Goldsmith, who is launching the company. And then basically with backing from the Jonas Brothers, you're trying to get a 1%, says them. Basically, if you got 1% of the combined 50 million Instagram followers on the Jonas Brothers, and you got them subscribed to this text messaging app, the trio would make around $30 million. So interesting new idea, Mr. Polizzi. It seems like SMS and text messaging is
it's
making
interesting.
a comeback.
I was one of the ones years ago that said SMS and text distribution were not going to work because it was too personal and people didn't want to subscribe to those things. But we've seen over the past few years, as you said, there's been an evolution. People are open to it. They will opt into it. It was just for a while, as you know, it was mostly location based. Like, you'd take your family to Disney, and while I'm at Disney, I want all the text messages, and then I want to stop when I'm done. But there's something here for super fans and those with a large audience. I think that something like this, I don't know if Scriber itself, but something like this will absolutely be a success. You're seeing this happen on the local level, where you want to subscribe specifically to a reporter that's covering a small suburb, local news. What the best way to get information? They're going to send you a text first thing in the morning, and you'll pay $5 a month for that or whatever. That's absolutely a thing that's going to happen. But I really do think that if you have a large audience and you want to convert a small percentage, and you want to have more control over that and go outside the social networks and the Apples and the Googles of the world, this is something you should absolutely look at. And I wouldn't have thought that was the case a couple years ago.
Yeah, I still wonder. I have questions about this. I'm not sure I buy it.
Doing it? You hate them?
Well, it's not that necessarily. I mean, look, it's not that. I got no hate for the Jonas Brothers, but I just don't know that I buy that people are going to be satisfied with subscribing, actually paying money to get text messages. Because let's keep in mind that it's text messages. It's not, you might get a link or something to something, and you could, get your, super fan T-shirt or whatever. But it's just you're getting text messages. There's no rich sort of interaction here, and I think it might attract and maybe they're right. Maybe 1% of big followings to subscribe to this thing. Maybe it is a very niche play for very big celebrities. But it just seems to me that, look, this is the kind of thing that Twitter needs to be solving, right? This is exactly the thing that Twitter is built to solve. If they can monetize their subscriptions and create those kinds of platforms for celebrities, because they're already there. And the fact that, going back to our original story on Twitter, it's like, why isn't Twitter launching this service? Why isn't this available?
Oh my God, it wouldn't be that hard for them to execute this either.
No, I know. It's just so like staring them in the face and become
part of my club, and you'll get a tweet from me every day that nobody else gets or whatever. And
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Or just subscribe and make sure that you're subscribing. There's a private list where you're getting stuff that nobody else is getting. You get DMs, you get, all this stuff. Yeah. It's like, it seems like a no-brainer to me, but who am I?
Yeah.
Just trying to fix things.
You and Nick Jonas. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
All right, our last story that we're going to cover before we get to some rants and raves here. You can basically do a Google search and find a few things here, but we'll actually link to the Justice Department's press release on this, which is just
odd.
It's just there's a little bit of but it's a little bit of also kind of delicious as well. The headline here is that former employee of NFT Marketplace, and by the way, the NFT Marketplace in question here is OpenSea, is charged in the first ever digital asset insider trading scheme. Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, and Michael J. Driscoll, Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, very formal, very authoritarian sounding, announced the unsealing of an indictment. Nathaniel Chastain, a former product manager at Ozone Networks, a.k.a. OpenSea, with wire fraud and money laundering in connection with a scheme to commit insider trading on non-fungible tokens. Basically, put very simply, what he was doing, according to this indictment, was getting wind that these NFT projects were going to hit the front page of OpenSea, and before they did, he would go in and buy them and then basically transfer them through a number of wallets to try and hide his trail. And then ultimately, when they did hit the front page, they would get a hit, and then he would resell them for a big profit. What do you think about all this? This is fascinating to me on a couple of levels, which is one, it's the first time we're actually starting to see some teeth in this non-fungible marketplace, and we talked last week about Seth Green and all of that. Is this the beginning of actually starting to get in some teeth to regulatory or some regulations?
It seems that way. It's interesting because you sent me the article, and then I sent Mitch Jackson a note. So Mitch presented at Creator Economy Expo, and Mitch is with Jackson and Wilson Law, and his group has really been focusing on Web3 more than the others that I've seen. So he got back. I just asked for thoughts, and he sends me 18 paragraphs, which are amazing. But so what Mitch is saying is that you're going to see more state and federal law enforcement agencies enforce this. And I love this line from Mitch. He says, frankly, over the last 3 decades of practice, I've observed more innocent and negligent mistakes and more intentional wrongdoing in the Web3 space over the last 2 years than in the last 35 years of practicing law. So there's a lot of funny business going on either way, but isn't it crazy?
Gosh, it's crazy.
But I think the thing that he brings up that is important is, and this is referenced in the indictment, it says to conceal his purchase. This is what Mitch says: to conceal his purchase of features NFTs before they appeared on OpenSea's homepage. Nathaniel Chastain, the defendant, used anonymous OpenSea accounts instead of his publicly known account. So he was doing it on purpose.
He's definitely doing it on purpose, right? There's no question.
So this is regardless of what it was. I mean, he's trying to conceal. He has knowledge. There's going to be money that changes hands. I don't know, whether you consider it property or security or not. This is a problem. So, I mean, my whole thing over and over again, as we covered the Seth thing last week and this one this week, is that if you're doing anything in the Web3 space, you need to have a legal representation that knows what they're doing, that can advise you properly. Because many of the projects that are launching out there are doing so without any legal oversight at all. And I can't imagine doing that.
or they're just guessing.
Exactly. Or they're just taking a chance and saying whatever. And this is, this is a lot like the days in 95, 96, 97 on, on the web where we didn't know. It was, just launch it. Well, these regulations are coming. So here we go.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to the days of, in the early days of the Web 1.0, right? Companies like Napster and MP3.com, both of which I had a little bit, to do with because I was in consulting back then. And the same things were true, right? They were sort of like, well, it's kind of legal, but kind of not legal, right? And so there was this real fuzziness over what was available, what could you download versus what could you just listen to? Could you stream, content? Because none of those, it seems odd now because of course there's all sorts of settled law on this now, but in those days there wasn't. And there everything from, all those sort of streaming services and everything were just the Wild West.
It's crazy. Yeah, I would imagine the next. And the thing is, we want to see regulation. Everyone in this industry wants to.
Of course,
we want to know what the rules are.
You want the rules of the road.
This is why Twitter's falling down, right? Uncertainty.
Exactly.
Everyone wants to know what are we playing? What are the rules? What's the box we need to play in? Just tell us, please.
And that is and that's such a good point, right? When you look at the marketplace, we always think, the marketplace loves good news and hates bad news. No, the marketplace doesn't really care about bad news that much. They may or may not like the good news, but what the marketplace hates is uncertainty.
We don't want we just like to know what's coming.
No surprises.
That's right. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We are fixing things left and right here, and it is now time for our rants and raves, where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave that makes us feel like we've created Winnie the Pooh, or makes us feel like we've created some horror movie with
Piglet.
You should see this thing, by the way. You should see this.
I'm going to look at it after we're done.
With the Winnie the Pooh horror.
I'm not going to look it up I'm not going to look it up during
creepy.
the podcast. I can't look it up right now, but after we're done with the podcast and after I produce the podcast and I sweat and I do all the things that I do for you, then I'm going to watch this. Is that okay?
The solar system that is Joe Pulizzi's life. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've heard today is Joe Pulizzi bitching about his life. All right. Do you want me to go first or shall you go first?
I have two quick raves. The first one is, I love this story. I had a few people send this to me. And the title of this is from USA Today. Remember the no phone guy watching Tiger Woods? He signed a merchandise deal with Michelob Ultra. If you get a chance, look at this picture. So basically, it's Tiger Woods. This is, where was this? US Open? Whatever, the big tournament a couple weeks ago. I'm so out of it on my golf these days. But so Tiger just hit a great shot, and you have 30 people in the background, and every one of them has their phone in their hands. They're taking a picture, video, whatever they're doing, except one guy right behind Tiger. He's totally into it, holding his Michelob Ultra can. And Michelob Ultra contacted that dude and did a really serious commercial with him and is leveraging that. And so I love the fact that Michelob Ultra leaned into that. The other thing I love is I'm so going boomer with this. Gotta be checking my phone every 5 minutes. I'm totally done with it. I love people that are just in the present moment, living it. And so I love this guy. So hats off to Mark, the Michelob Ultra guy. Picture. Yeah. I mean, it really says, this is the state of where we're at right now. Everybody's looking at their phone and is taking the image of Tiger, and this guy is all in, just watching Tiger hit that ball. Thank you. Thank you, Michelob Ultra Guy. And then just a quick rave. I just finished reading a book called Fans First by Jesse Cole. Jesse is the founder, the owner of the Savannah Bananas. You've heard me talk about the Savannah Bananas on this program before.
I have, yeah.
And I don't rave about business books that often that don't come from either one of us. This one I love. I'm absolutely taking many things that I'm going to be implementing in our business, specifically from what Jesse puts in this. And he thinks about, I mean, you would dig this book, especially Robert, because you're all in on customer experience.
I can't wait. Yeah.
This is a customer experience book like I've never seen before, to look at I'll just give you one little thing that I love. Every game, they have somebody from their Savannah Bananas team go incognito and experience the game as a fan every time to notice the thing, to make sure things are right. So that you have to go park, you have to go get your ticket, you have to do all the things. You have to stand in line, and then they all make suggestions on how they can improve the game. It's just fantastic. I can't recommend it highly enough. Fans first, Jesse Cole. Jesse did a great job with this book. So there you go.
I love it. I love it.
So what do you got?
All right. I got a quick thing, and it's just literally something I just want to make sure everybody's paying attention to, because there's a lot going on in the news right now. There's a lot going on with the Supreme Court, and this is yet another thing that's happening, and it's related to what we do for a living. So I thought I would just sort of call attention to it. What we'll link to in the show notes is a CNBC article, but there's a number of media outlets actually covering this. The headline is "The Supreme Court blocks Texas social media law that tech companies warned would allow hateful content to run rampant." Basically, as you look at what the bullet points are, as it were. Basically, the Supreme Court on Tuesday, and that was Tuesday of this week, blocked a controversial Texas social media law from taking effect. The tech industry, of course, and other opponents warned it would basically allow hateful content to run rampant. And the legislation, the law that they blocked, would ostensibly prohibit online platforms like Facebook and Twitter and others, and basically anyone really online, from moderating or removing content based on viewpoint, based on their view. A lower court had initially blocked the law, but they appealed it, and the appeals court allowed it to move forward as it deliberates the broader case, which I guess is around, quote unquote, free speech on these platforms. And the Supreme Court on Tuesday blocked this law for now. Basically, it's not dead. They've just blocked it for now until they can either hear it, or it changes, or they find new standing, or whatever it is. It is in many ways like other Supreme Court decisions right now. It is baffling to me that we're having this conversation in 2022, but we are having this conversation in 2022. It's unbelievable to me that we're actually discussing whether or not private companies like Twitter or Facebook or other media companies should be moderating or curating their content. And we've talked at great length about the tension that exists between allowing content to exist on places like Facebook and Twitter versus the media companies' responsibility. And we've talked that the media companies have to take responsibility for this. They are media companies. They are, they've fought forever to not be considered media companies, to be considered platforms. And then they basically came back and said, hey, listen, we need to be able to moderate this stuff because people are just spewing hateful things and dangerous things. And you can't live in both worlds. And so there will come a reckoning, and there should be a reckoning with regulation, very much like there is on mainstream media. We've talked at great length about how we're fans of that on this particular show. And I'm a huge fan of that, of saying the regulation needs to happen. We need to look at these companies as media companies, but they also should have the right to curate, not only the responsibility to curate this and to get it right, but the responsibility as well as the right to be able to curate whatever it is they want to allow on their platform. It is their platform, after all. We are just renters in it. And so I think this is just something we need to pay attention to and look at and make sure that we're, sending letters or whatever the right thing is to do to our Congress critters to make sure that we're getting good, sensible regulation and legislation done that helps these social media and other media companies that are becoming so much part of our cultural lives the ability to execute their own free speech, but have the responsibility for getting it right. It's
so interesting that Elon and the people that follow him that say they want the free speech on Twitter. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, you want them to say anything? Right. Can they say anything they want, no matter the repercussions? Is that what you want? Be careful what you ask for. I don't think we want to go there. And there are places you can have uninterrupted. There are places on the web, if you'd like, especially on the dark web, that there is 100% free speech. You can say whatever you want. But if it's as a private company,
that's exactly
media
right.
company, it's different. You have responsibilities. So,
and we've talked about that before with the rise of some of the niche oriented social platforms that are, that will struggle, as we've predicted, and as seemingly coming true. They'll struggle because once you create that, the benefit of having a mass audience on a platform like Facebook or Twitter is that you can create the tension, right? You can create the tension between the left and the right, or the pro and the con, or whatever it happens to be, and that's what provides engagement. That's what provides the level of content interchange, and all of that happens when you're on a niche where you're basically preaching to the choir, where it's all everybody is in one particular camp. Everybody's going, yeah, I get it, and so why are you posting in that? There's nothing to post because everybody believes in everything you say. So it becomes very, it's like crickets in there because nobody cares. And so it's that tension that's important. So the idea that, the flip side of that coin is, however, and this is what Facebook has gotten so much crap over, is that tension then breeds sort of uncivility and in some cases even violence. And so it's like, where do you have to stop and draw the line? And for those media companies, they just have to edit. They just have to make sure that they're moderating and they're curating things in a way that keeps the peace that they want to keep, and then let the marketplace decide.
It's going to get interesting. I feel like it's just started, even though it's been going on for a long time. I think it's going to get really interesting here with what's happening to our society. You're in San Diego, correct?
Yeah. I am in San Diego this week. Yes, I'm in San Diego. I'm finishing up a week here of Content Tech, which was a really fun little event. Still suffering a little bit from our COVID hangover and people travel bans and all that sort of thing. But we had a small group of people here talking about content technology. The speakers were outstanding. Every speaker we had was just outstanding. And it was just a lovely, valuable conversation to have around technology and content. And yeah, I'm headed home today. I'm going back home today and back to work.
Scotch.
How about you?
Scotch. What am I doing? I'm going golfing later today. Enjoying that. My
lovely the Joe Pulizzi Solar System.
The love of my life is having her 50th birthday next week.
Aww.
And we are having a big old party, which she's doing something. She's basically doing random acts of kindness, and she's asking anyone who wants to get involved. I'll be sending this link out on Twitter. I put it in my JoePulizzi.com newsletter, where she's trying to get people to, on June 8th, do a random act of kindness. Go give blood, go buy coffee for somebody that would be a surprise, go visit somebody at a nursing home, those types of things that you wouldn't normally do. So we're trying to get as many people as possible. She's hoping to get at least 50 people. So anybody that wants to help out with that, please, would love it if you do that. And we can sort of, all make the world a better place by doing one little thing. So for her, her big bash.
I like it.
So there you go. Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like it a lot. We fixed a lot.
We did.
Today.
We usually do, but this one I think we fixed more than what we usually do. I'm very proud of us today.
We fixed more. Yeah. We did hashtag all the fixing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it. We're going to sign off here. Thanks to Joe, a.k.a. Dan Bagonis,
Thanks,
for
Dan.
The wonderful story ideas. Thanks, Dan. Heath Dingwell at Heath Dingwell on Twitter. Jeff Cram. Thank you, Jeff, very much for your story ideas. And all of you out there, hashtag us up. Won't you? Hashtag us up with hashtag This Old Marketing, and we love those story ideas on the Twitter. We love getting them. In the meantime, if you want to get all the goodness of the show notes and the links and everything we talked about, or dive into any of the other 325 episodes, just get on over to our wonderful little website at thisoldmarketing.site. And until we meet again, remember, folks, it is your story to tell.